All right, we're back with our next category.
Oh, yeah.
Best Wolfenstein 2 moment or sequence.
I hope you don't mind. I had a little refresh. I took a powder.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah,
you?
I did, yeah. When we took the break there.
Okay. Feeling fresh?
I do, yeah.
Can I get some of this powder?
Yeah, it's my favorite movie. I'll get you on Blu-ray.
Starring Alex Navarro.
Oh, man. Opening an old wound here.
It's rough.
Speaking of powder, we've got some brilliant choices today.
I don't want to talk about video
We kept their
games
powder
anymore.
dry.
You should play
category.
Wolfenstein before you listen to this.
I'm actually very camp.
Yes.
Ew.
Like,
Or just maybe look that stuff up.
you should play Wolfenstein.
Yeah,
Yeah, play Wolfenstein.
You should support Wolfenstein so they make another one.
Yes.
okay.
Because they have to make another one.
We have to kill Mecha Hitler.
Yeah, dude. Normally we have one category a year for best moment or sequence, but then we realized that Wolfenstein 2 was just going to run that category, essentially.
Yeah. So in order to give all these other games a chance, we figured we would break the Wolfenstein 2 stuff out into its own category.
Yeah, because, man,
There's some good
some
moments.
stuff happens in that game.
That's kind of what that game is a long series of incredible moments.
Incredible, yeah. It's the best, it is definitely the best stuff in that game.
Yeah. So, yeah, final warning if you haven't played Wolfenstein 2, turn this thing off and go play it. Or just
take our word for it.
go on a journey with us as we go through this list.
Yeah.
It's like 12 hours. You can do it.
Yeah, here we go. The wheelchair intro, the death of Caroline, walking around America, nuking Roswell, and guitar kicking in as you ride off on your stupid circle scooter thing.
Yeah. It's a great description of that bed.
Confronting your father, the courtroom dream sequence, the death and return of B.J. Blazkowicz, Fraulein Engels boning that dude in the submarine, meeting Horton Boon in New Orleans, the Hitler scene, BJ's audition, specifically the bad line reads. That's kind of
That's more of a breakout of a thing.
I would
Yes.
say that's the Hitler scene.
part of
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot to that scene. But
Yeah, there are layers there.
The part where you blow up the robots and your topless, blood-covered pregnant wife shoots a bunch of Nazis,
Let me put it that way.
Outlandish.
Yes.
and the talk show ending.
The part where you blow up the robots and your topless, blood-covered pregnant wife shoots a bunch of Nazis is the part where I actually threw the controller down on the ground and just said, "Oh, fuck you."
I was laughing. I was almost tearing up by how stupid it was.
Yeah, in a game full of like really outlandish moments like that, the part came on. I'm like, this is like weirdly too far.
I thought it was like,
Why do they keep putting her
her
like?
shirt catches on
No,
fire.
why do they keep sending her on these missions? Why do
Because they don't have enough people. Like
that's
they
a
have
pretty
to.
full submarine.
I like that they send her on missions.
That's
I think
great,
it's
but
cool.
like I think it's like
She's also a good like marksman, you know. She's a good soldier.
So wait, her
She's
shirt actually does
dedicated.
catch on fire.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
why she pulled it
Okay,
off.
so I missed that part.
yeah.
So to me, it was just like she's just like, and it's like, what the fuck? Like, I mean, cool, whatever.
Hormones, man. They fucking run wild.
I literally thought that was what they were trying to say, and I was like, this is weird.
I just love that BJ's laying there, just like,
I have chosen the correct woman
he's
for
like,
my life.
I'm into this.
Let me tell you from experience, it's a great moment when your wife is like gunning down Nazis and stuff and just covered in blood.
And they kind of work up to it. Like when she's like calling him and stuff, she's like, I miss you, you know, I really miss you, and just like implies like I'm getting horny or whatever.
Yeah.
And
And then it was like, didn't she do that? Then everyone was on the phone with her.
Yeah.
Everybody else is listening in.
Yeah. Yeah, she accidentally got horny on the group text.
So I figured
this
that
is Maine.
I figured that the implication there was that she was going to die.
That
That would be that they were just building up to that. And it was like, okay. So when they didn't do that, I was like, okay, good.
Yeah.
Also, what they did instead is weird. But again, I did not see that her shirt fucking caught on fire.
I just watched it. It is easy to miss.
Yeah, minor correction here. She's not shooting a bunch of Nazis. She's shooting one of the
throwing
Nazi
grenades.
robot dogs.
Yeah, and she's dual wielding
I'm
two
going to say
machine
Nazi
guns.
robot
Yeah,
dog
count us
still a
down.
Nazi.
They're still in the party.
They knew what they were getting
okay.
into.
Just want to make sure we're absolutely accurate on these.
This is a cool game.
Yeah, there's a word for people who work with Nazis, and it's Nazi.
So here's one clarification I would like to break out here out of all the ones we have right now. Does confronting your father specifically just tie to the scene where you were talking to your asshole dad before you inevitably fucking you chop his arm off?
It's that whole scene.
Murder.
Yeah.
Because I was gonna
Even
say,
like the flashbacks beforehand.
I mean, that's the build up to this scene.
yeah.
I specifically
I
like
like
the
this a lot.
payoff of just
But
like
it's-
super murdering him.
There's the payoff of super murdering him, but then there's also the part right after that where you are literally fighting Nazis in
in
your
this-
childhood home that is being suspended above the air by hundreds of feet.
I think we could kind of tie that whole sequence
Okay, that's
together.
fine.
It's a real 1-2 punch
Because
there.
I mean, because the real impact of that scene is not you killed your dad. It's your dad fucking collaborated with and
Yes.
betrayed
Yeah.
you,
Sold out
to
your
the
mom.
Nazis.
In a spot where most games would be like, here's the spot where they go like, oh, well, you know, he just felt he was doing what he had to
Right.
do.
No, they
Right.
drive it
and
home.
here he is, like, trying to apologize. Like, no, they just fucking
he was-
quadruples down on it, and you
Yeah.
go, well, I'm going to fucking murder
And
you.
they do that right after they you are walking through the home. You're having that little gone home moment where you're finding all the different memories and stuff. And the thing I liked about that part, like heavy-handed as it is, like they are definitely portraying and painting the portrait of how shitty of a dad that dude is. But they even go to the trouble of actually putting a little bit of a like mildly happy memory in there to show that like, hey, even abusive pieces of shit, sometimes there are moments in there that you can latch onto and go, hey, there's some like he was
the BB gun part?
occasionally he was a dad.
Was that when he was asleep and he goes up and sits next to him on the bed?
Yeah, and there's like he's talking about the monsters like down in the basement or whatever, and so they
right.
all go down there with the guns like looking for the monsters. Like, hey, do you see him? Do you see him?
Yeah.
Like they really illustrate that stuff really well, and then when you actually confront him, like it makes that stuff way more impactful.
He's not just like a comic book villain.
Yes.
Like, yeah. Well,
He was the monster.
I would also say it's not just that scene illustrates that he sold you and your mother out, but for how little he sold you out.
Yes.
Because all he says is, hey, I got a nice farm upstate or whatever. Like, they didn't make him a millionaire. He didn't become a high-ranking Nazi
Right.
party official.
He's like
They gave
his
him
name
some
being
land.
drugged through the mud as well.
He was a dude who was, by all accounts, generally a failure as a human being, and all they did was just put him in a place of mild comfort.
Right. Like that. Like it's just saying, like here's how little people will sell out their own society for. Like it's actually incredibly powerful.
Yeah, and that's the stuff that game does incredibly well. Is like they, as cartoonish as it can be, and how desperate it sometimes can be to dunk on Nazis at all costs. Like they actually spend some time really kind of illustrating the ways in which society, gives itself over to that kind of shit.
Yeah.
and that's the Roswell scene does a really good job of that too in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
Where does the special break out?
Oh God!
Oh fuck! How did we not even put it on there? The
I
death
thought-
of Super Special. I thought that was the
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
Hang on, yeah,
Oh,
I will put that. I tried
I didn't know
tried
if that
to
fit into one. Like some of
I
these
thought that was
overlap
with
so
the
much.
courtroom.
I tried to put all no, they're kind
That's
of
pre-courtroom.
they sort of lead to
Yeah, I'd say that's
but I'd say that's still a distinct moment. I tried to put all these in chronological order, so that's,
Yeah, it would be in between there.
I guess let's just call it the death of Super Spesh.
So like that scene for me was definitely a point of I thought we were getting out of there.
Really?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
As soon as he
Totally.
gets to the second detail of the plan, and he's like really specifically going down this list of exactly how
You
he's
knew it
going to
was
get you
done.
out, I'm like, oh, this is either he sold you out and he's like trying to fuck you, or he's about to die, or this is a dream.
Oh,
I was
really?
like, this is too specific of a plan.
I thought we were out, and then like once he went down, like once he is killed, I wasn't sure where the game was going after that. Like I wasn't sure exactly
Yeah.
what like we were gonna do. Like it's just like a really dark ending.
It's a great double whammy of like you think like they swerve you twice there
Yeah.
over the course of like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Real hard. Because again, it's like playing against type. Like most video games of this nature is like you're captured, you immediately escape and gun a bunch of people down over the course of like one cutscene. So for this to like build it up all the way to the point where they're chopping your head off and then you get out.
Yes. So I wanted to point out that everything from nuking Roswell to your father to the death of Super Spesh to the courtroom dream sequence and then you having your head cut off, saved in a crazy madcap caper.
Yeah.
and then bolted onto a genetically engineered Nazi super soldier body. All takes place in the space of like maybe an hour.
Yeah.
So like if we
depending
get
on
down
how
to
long
it,
that courtroom sequence takes, because that's one of the worst.
Yeah.
But
That
gameplay
part
portions of the
so
game.
I just wanted to say, like, if it really came down to it, you could make an argument for all of those things being a sequence.
That was my initial feeling, was that it is best moment or sequence, and that sequence is so tied together in the way that it paces everything out, and the way that it's sort of like, it builds and crescendos with your fucking head being dangled over a flaming fucking incinerator
By a little flying robot.
and then fucking rescued by a drone and put in a jar.
On
Like,
the Washington Mall.
yeah, like all that shit, like
Oh, yeah.
the way it all the build up to that, I think, is what makes that moment so crazy on
then
top of everything else.
One of my favorite things about it is too. It's like the pin on it. The very last thing you do is like, hey, we found 3 big like upgrade points, or like, how do you want to upgrade your super body? And it's just to be like, hey, remember this is a video game. Like, check this out.
As annoying as the half health thing is for the first like half of that game, the way that they story their way out of you not having enough health and like being on the verge of death is goddamn incredible.
And it's a really good turn for that game too, because like thematically it was getting to be a bit much of like every 5 minutes him going like, I'm not gonna make it.
Right. Yeah.
Spread your wings for me, Caroline. It's time to getting ready. Can't tell her how dead I am.
2 weeks.
Man, I don't
3
know.
weeks.
I'm murdering myself.
4 weeks.
I put the Nazi poison in my body.
5 weeks.
The only thing I
I
will
would kill a guy
say,
for a sandwich.
the only thing I will say in favor of all of that is that they did fix one problem from the first game with that, in that the first game, it was just veering all over the place tonally. This time, they just put all the sad stuff in the first half, and then just turned all the bonkers shit in the second half.
It turns into like almost like an exploitation film by the end of the game.
Yeah. They pay all that stuff off in a way that like I said, it was getting to be a bit much in the run up to that. Like, why do I have 50 health? And then also, but at least I'm getting double armor from this weird armor, and then they just balance that out. Like, how about 100 of each? And ultimately, it's not much of a change, but but you look at it and it feels very different.
And you get some more abilities. With this.
I don't know. Like, as tempting as it is to lump all that stuff together into one super sequence,
They're individual.
like I think the confronting your father stuff is strong enough to stand on its own.
Totally. I mostly just wanted to point out how insane it is that those things are all packed so close together, and any one of those could win this category in another year.
Like, I would maybe just rename Confronting Your Father as Going Home Again, because I think it is that entire sequence of you walking around the house, you confronting him, and then also fighting Nazis in your airborne childhood home.
Yeah. Though I like
It's fucking
that
great.
part,
The house like turns on its end as well.
Yeah. Keeps
Oh,
rotating,
God. It's so cool.
I don't think these first 2 are particularly strong for me.
I'd say even the first 3.
Death of Caroline is pretty fucked.
And
also
it's very fucked, but like,
especially coming out, like I finished New Order like hours before I started this game, and like she was one of the best characters in the first game too. So to see her so graphically lose her head,
and she was also
in the first 30 minutes of that game, I was just like, "Fuck, man!"
She was also one of the only tie-ins to the Raven Software game, which
That's right.
wow.
Yeah.
which is technically this is in the same universe as that, but like it's
Crazy.
That she is really the only like major character that comes over.
her and Death's Head are I think the only 2, and he dies in New Order.
well, they wrapped that up.
Yeah, they did.
Man.
It's like it's a shocking death at the start of the game. And it's graphic, but I think it sets the tone for what's to come.
It's not going to be top 3,
Yeah.
but I really like Caroline.
And I thought the wheelchair intro is like novel, but also
I think
fun.
I think they did a good job of designing that level for that and making that sequence feel like you are in kind of a powerless position while you're trying to sneak your way through there.
Whatever. I was rolling up and fucking. That's where I did all my stealth killing.
Sure,
was while I was still in the wheelchair. Like that,
which is an insanely good visual thing to think about. Just someone stealth killing in a wheelchair.
And in a weird way, like I think the walking around America thing would have been more impactful if they had actually gone back to it at some point.
It
Like
just felt like a weird chapter that like didn't really.
We talked about it in the previous category. It's just kind of one note and very
Well,
narrow.
I think for me that was the part where you realize that there's a lot of complicit people.
Like I think that's it's a really powerful moment that like it's more explicit than a lot of the collectibles, which kind of tell the same thing.
That is kind of the theme
like
of the whole game.
this is one long flavor bit where every step of the way you're hearing some conversation where people are like, you're invited to the wedding, of course, blah blah blah, and then people like trying to frantically learn
how's your German going?
while fucking wearing clan outfits.
I listened to that
actually
whole conversation.
maybe my
That was
favorite
really good.
thing about all that stuff though is how much the SS officers think that the Klan dudes are actually a bunch of fucking morons.
Yeah, totally.
Like they're a bunch of idiot rubes that can't learn German.
I think it's kind of a bummer that they crammed so much of that stuff just into that one section, because that
Agreed.
stuff I find really interesting if they had spread that out throughout the game instead of like, when I'm walking around the bombed out New York, it's like, well, okay, this is actually kind of boring.
They do spread it out throughout the game, but it's like it's all in collectibles.
Right.
And sometimes
so
in like
it's
enemy conversations that you
Right.
get here and there. But like, yeah, that was the thing for me, was like, it did feel like they were trying to cram as much of the fucked up Americana as they could into a very tight sequence. So you end up with this cavalcade of moments where you end up, like you were talking about the wedding scene. It's like, yeah, no, they're talking about coming to the wedding. Oh, by the way, also we're going to the slave auction next weekend if you want to come. Like, they just kept piling stuff like that on top of it. After a while, it just felt like this is so over the top that I don't know, man.
Like all the storefronts where it's like, oh, here's the Abbey Road cover, but the German thing.
I don't know if the notion of over the top exists in this game.
Yeah.
It's over the top even for what they're trying to do, I thought.
That's fair.
And I think there are also other moments that I felt more strongly about.
Yeah, like I was going to put on here, like there's instances of enemy dialogue and stuff like that around the game, or there's one conversation. I think it's when you're in the middle of the Roswell sequence, like when you're going to the train.
Exactly what you're talking about.
The crux of the conversation is basically two Nazis saying so much for the tolerant left.
Yeah.
And you're just like, fucking.
And then they talk about like signing up for the death squad.
Just like, these terrorists, these terrorists just can't tolerate differences of political opinion.
Anyway, you go on the raid. It's pretty awesome.
All right.
That said, the part where the Nazi does chide the guys for not knowing German well enough is really good. Really good.
All right, I cut the top three.
Okay.
Did the milkshake scene do anything for you guys as well?
not
Like
like
inside the
bad.
diner?
It's fine.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
Like
okay.
mom ushering out the kid and
That part was okay.
I think the bit with Super Spesh afterward is much more memorable, where he's just yelling about aliens.
That part's all right. Yeah.
Oh, you have a fire extinguisher nuke.
Yeah.
And like you just being like, it's not aliens, man. It's just not aliens.
Of course, it's fucking aliens.
I know everything about it. His response to you him finding out that you have a fire extinguisher nuke is so good. It's just,
Oh.
yes, yes.
Yeah, he's a good character.
And his death sequence is super good. Like, I was talking to Austin a little bit about that one. He was like, it's one of the most Coensian things I've seen in a video game ever.
Yeah.
Like, it is like a Coen's brothers fucking farce tragedy.
It's sad.
Sure.
It's very sad.
I think we could probably get rid of Fraulein Engel's boning that dude in the submarine.
Yeah,
I think it's funny, but it was
yeah.
like
Funny
in
little
the
shot.
trailers.
I put it in there just because of how tossed off it is. Like they don't actually, they barely notice that it's happening. Like something else is actually going on at that time. That's not the point of the scene. It's just like they roll up and they're like, "Hey, we need the submarine. Get out! Get the hell out of there!"
The guy just shrugs.
I think it's a little more like, get the fuck out of there.
Well, yeah, but like it's just so casually treated. It's not like, haha, look how funny this is. It's just like, no, that's what these characters.
I
are
think
up
that
to.
whole relationship is kind of interesting.
So actually,
They're back and
this
forth.
makes me remember the Engels scene at the end
Yeah.
when she finally
She's kinda like,
stops.
fuck you.
She finally
She's, like,
stops taking
choking
stops taking shit from Grace and everybody else.
Yeah, that's a pretty good moment because you start to think that this is going to go like, oh, well, she's going to betray them at the end of the game.
Right.
Uh,
Right. Yes,
Yeah.
that's totally where I thought it was going.
Yeah.
Like,
That's a pretty good scene.
they play against type really well across this game.
Yeah, totally.
In terms of just like the way storytelling in games usually works.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the thing. Like, other than the big thing in the middle where your head is the central piece of all of that. Like, there aren't really any like big twists in this game, which I kind of admire.
Yeah.
Like, they don't like try and throw any of the major characters, like you said. Like, there's no heel turn in there for them. Like, they seem to like their characters too much to want to do that, which I appreciate.
Yeah, there's really no betrayal
No.
at all.
Or they're saving it all up for the end.
That's also possible. But yeah.
I don't like the talk show ending.
I didn't either.
I like it. I like creeping around in the rafters and and just knowing what's about to happen. Like, oh, I'm about to super kill her, and like they're just completely oblivious. And the like standing crowd, like the cardboard stuff. I thought that was really.
I mean,
cool.
I think that was, they're like monologuing in front of the camera.
Dude,
I
like-
thought was
Oh, we're right.
Really?
at the end.
Like
Yeah.
crashing a national broadcast and declaring the revolution.
I like
Is
that.
that
I thought
that was
fucking
pretty
crazy.
good.
No, just the kind of extended monologues that they had after, like where everybody had their piece. It felt like the end credits like thing in the upper left corner of like an end credits thing of like a Dom DeLuise film.
Yeah.
Of, like,
Okay.
These bleeds right here,
Yeah.
that'd be even better.
Did you see both of them? Vinny?
What's that?
Oh, there's two different like monologues. Yeah, depending on
Which character you
yeah.
have?
The Wyatt one was maybe a
That's
little
the
too
Fergus
America is already great for my tastes.
Yeah.
I didn't see that one.
I feel like that scene is just maybe like an example of them maybe trying a little too hard to dunk on the Nazi stuff. Like the talk show set with the cardboard audience and stuff like is kind of funny, but like I feel like they spend a lot of that game trying to satirize the ways in which the Nazis are just idiots and fucking, and their propaganda machine is sort of propped up by this very flimsy notion of what they're doing, and like to a point that is fun, but by the end of it I was just like, when they got to the talk show, it was just kind of shrugged. I was like, all right, that's fine.
I don't know. I still like that they were in front of a cardboard set.
Yeah.
Like, you pieces of shit. Sure. I like the Cronenberg-esque stuff with like Engels, like
the hatchet in their head.
It's like happens a couple of times in that game where they really kind of let that camera linger. I mean, it was in the first one too. Like when she gets her job popped off. Yeah. But that was also just like, oh, okay. I know we're looking for like just rewards here, but like. I'm good.
The thing I liked about the stuff at the end of the game, them talking to camera, is that it is ramshackle and thrown together because you're left with the impression that none of them thought of this moment.
Yeah.
And there's like, you say, like this is, and I think that makes me like those characters.
It plays off more, but there was definitely just like one of those things of like, boy, if I were watching this, they'd be like, you guys need to get a speech together. I mean, I think BJ has like a pretty good speech, but then everybody else just comes up and does their bit. Which, listen, how do you end that game? Like
it's
with
the 60s, and most people are not on camera very often, so like think of it that way.
That's right. They didn't have their YouTube channel.
It's also the middle chapter of a trilogy.
Yeah, again,
and that's how they end the middle chapter.
That's what I'm saying. Like, how do you end that game? Like with all the like climaxes in that game, like how do you have one more?
Also, since this is a very competitive category, we have to point out that the song that immediately follows that is
Great.
Yes. It could have been better.
It's one of the worst things in video games this year.
Like worst moment or sequence, the end credits.
That might be harsh, but it's not good.
I would probably.
It's not good.
I think we could probably also get rid of the part where you blow up the robots and your topless, blood-covered pregnant wife.
I agree.
I like it. I think it's fun.
I don't think it's top three.
But I don't think it's top three.
Look at the other stuff on this list.
It's super fun, but it's not impactful in the same way like the courtroom dream sequences. And you're going through and you're like, this is like any other video game. I'm going to bust out just at the last minute. I'm going to kill a bunch of dudes. And then it's like, no, you're not. You're going to die. Like, that's so much more impactful than like, oh, there's a funny moment. Look at my wife and her boobs.
Yeah, I agree.
That
Look at my pregnant with twins wife.
It's funny. It's cool. Like, I love that character, but
2 M4s.
Yeah. I mean, like, that moment is just crazy, but there's a lot of moments on here that are crazy and also have something to say.
Yeah, that moment was just them cutting loose and finally giving into their urge to just make a pulp novel cover, and that was it.
Totally. It's awesome, but there's a lot of stuff on this list.
This is probably tied into the Hitler scene, but the funniest part of that game is BJ reading those dumb lines after they're all smeared on his hand.
The wrong line reads, like you said, are really good.
There's something about the way when you pick the wrong line and he just looks at his hand for a while and then just, like, knows that you picked the wrong line for him and like just looks up at like the lady and looks back and then reads it so deadpan.
His line reading reminded me of Brad Pitt in Inglourious Bastards trying to do the accent. It's
So what happens if you pick the wrong lines?
You get shot.
I figure
Hitler just pulls out a gun and shoots you in the head.
All right. Yeah.
That stuff's awesome. But
We should talk
kind
about
of
this
part
whole
of the scene.
It might be tied in. I had some other I thought there was some stuff in this whole Hitler scene that just was like too campy for me. That was
like him constantly vomiting and
I
loved all that stuff.
I can't agree.
I don't know. I feel like I've seen so many like, oh, here's another like incompetent, stupid old Hitler who's like ultra violent. Like, I feel like I've seen that in media again and again and again, which is like fine, I get it, but I don't think it's doing anything all that new in Wolfenstein.
Yeah, like
what is another example?
Inglourious Bastards.
He was just Hitler in a movie theater there.
Like Warner Brothers cartoons
I think
from that era.
It's the extreme.
Right. What is that one thing that is like fat Hitler barfing into a bucket? What? That's like from an old time video. That's like a real thing. I don't know. Maybe it was.
I'm going to Google fat Hitler barfing into a bucket.
I mean, there certainly have been like portrayals of Hitler as like being that fucked up or whatever.
I think why it hits in this is because like this is he's what 80 something years old. The work up him as in all the like whenever you hear something about Hitler on the news in the background it's always about our glorious leader, the strong and powerful Hitler.
Absolutely, I think this scene, because they take it to such extremes, it functions as this takedown of personality cults.
For sure.
Where he's treated as like the a godlike figure, and then here he is pissing in a bucket.
The propaganda versus the reality. I get all that part, but it was definitely like they went very, very far with it.
Totally, and I think you have to at that point because they're on Venus. Like look at the heights that the Nazis have reached here. and look at how pathetic their god emperor is.
Yeah, I'm not saying that I need a reverent version of Hitler in this, and I'm totally fine with them dunking on him to some degree. I just think the degree to which they went to it, it became so distracting after a while. It's like, how many different ways can we make this man seem incontinent
and useless? Point.
Yeah.
Dude, it's fucking Hitler. There is no such thing as too many ways.
I really appreciate how unsubtle the game is.
Yeah,
they just went so far with that one.
I think that's why I was just breaking that out for a bit, was because the line read thing is so subtle.
That's the thing.
It is like the most subtle thing in that entire moment.
Also,
I think it's an interesting mix there, because you really get the menace and madness of Hitler and this whole thing out of
his
it.
paranoia.
Because, the paranoia, like every exactly, like that type of, and especially like in these 80s. After the end of the war has only gone fucking crazier.
Yeah.
When you think about, the something closer to the reality of Hitler's last days, and what people say about that, and then you map that out another couple of decades, this stuff actually doesn't seem that far fetched anymore.
Hitler living on Venus.
Well, maybe the Venus part, maybe.
I mean, the atmosphere is really good for his asthma.
Yeah.
Also, the way he's written, this is going to sound terrible, but if you've ever read passages from Mein Kampf, they nail that fucking, idiotic pomposity, that manner of speech where he fucking really thinks a lot of his ideas and his idea, they nail all that stuff. It sounds pitch perfect.
I think it's a good scene. I think
also,
some of it was more bombastic than others.
If this is me making my stand for this scene,
okay,
I'm going to play you a clip from it right now.
Okay.
All right.
Wherever the speakers are on this.
You've brought a clip? Other side,
Can I see?
You don't really need to see it. It's God damn it.
You just send it to Jason.
Yeah, have Jason.
Yeah,
do it.
Jason, can you play this?
Yes.
Okay.
Also,
I don't think a stand has to be made for this.
I think
scene
this is in the
this
top three.
category.
Yeah, I totally
This is
1,000% agree.
Yeah.
Didn't do it for me.
I also did not. I liked did not mind and kind of liked when he beats the crap out of that guy in the actual audition.
Yeah, so he just murders him terribly.
Yeah.
Well, all right.
And then lays down.
So that's
for
another
a nap.
facet of this thing that I think is really well done, is how it walks this line between macabre and hilarious.
Yeah.
Like every time he shoots somebody, it's incredibly grotesque, but I was also laughing my ass off. It's a really uncomfortable feeling
weird.
to be laughing at what's happening.
Then when he's napping and you just lightly kick him and he dies.
Yes, also the fact that
Oh yeah, there's an achievement for
you
kicking
can kill
Hitler to
him.
death.
I don't think he's napping. He's laying down because he can't stand it
He has
anymore.
no energy anymore.
Yeah, I wish you did more than kick it. You should just drop on him like that.
You stomp his fucking
You
head
do
out.
kinda,
though.
yeah.
It's,
I actually
Wait, really?
I wish that animation was more involved. Actually,
I thought that
it's pretty
I
quick.
feel like I
Should be
did
able to
a
mash
little
X.
tiny kick or something and he died.
it's not as
It's just kick his face, and it's you're dead. You're
yeah,
done.
you're dead.
I actually don't know if I touched Hitler during that part at all.
so you don't have that achievement then.
I don't think I do.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay, I see.
When the revolution
I see what kind of
I'm just saying
personality
that
that is.
I don't think I realized I could do that.
Oh, yeah.
That was
the
like
first thing I did was
first,
I know,
the first
I was
thing
like,
was
walk
you get
over.
control. I'm like, I bet I can kill Hitler.
Yeah, same
Time
here.
paradox.
Yeah,
Now I
that's the
feel like I
time.
missed
That's the
out.
time machine test right there.
I missed out on my chance to kill Hitler. I am very sorry.
okay. Listen to this and tell me. Okay.
Listen to this.
Also, the thing I was thinking of with the fat Hitler barfing was just a fat man barfing that had a mustache. It was a Monty Python sketch.
Okay.
I also really like how BJ looks with that mustache.
Yes.
Okay. Hold up.
Oh, yes, mein Führer. And my children have read it, too. I loved him, Mr. Hitler. Super good. Mr. Hitler. Wenn Sie mich
Listen to this guy's accent. Listen to this guy's voice and tell me what you come away from this with.
Make it a little louder, Jason.
Respekt vor Autorität! Ihre Worte gewähren Einblick in
Not Hitler, the other guy.
Nachricht Geist. I am so sorry, mein Führer. Sind Sie denn ein Idiot? No, mein Führer. Sind Sie ein verkleideter Schurke, ein Jude? Ein verräterischer Jude? No, mein Führer. I'm from Arizona.
Okay, you don't get to hear a ton of his voice there. Okay,
You can stop
it.
now.
Do you know who that is?
No.
It's Ronald Reagan.
Are you serious?
The first guy that Hitler kills in that scene is Ronald fucking Reagan.
What? Yeah, that's amazing.
I just saw people right before we started recording this.
How did that? Is it just from the voice?
Well, he introduces because you can walk around and talk to all the actors before the scene, and he introduces himself as Ronald.
Oh,
and when you know that, or if you figure it out, and then you go back and listen to it, it's painfully obvious.
I totally
from the voice.
did not make the connection when I was playing it.
Also, there is before you start the scripted part of that scene, there's a collectible on the desk that you can read. That's a call sheet. And the last entry is Ronald, and there's a coffee stain over the last name.
Wow,
that's really good.
And the description of the actor makes it very apparent who it is.
And
wow!
Given their history of putting interesting historical pop culture figures into different contexts, that I should have realized that.
That's really good.
They wrote a scene in which Adolf Hitler murders Ronald Reagan
on Venus.
On Venus. In cold
During a
blood.
movie audition.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
What the fuck is this game?
Yeah.
Is Ronald Reagan from Arizona?
I believe he is.
Wow.
Oh, that's so good. Holy shit.
I think okay, that seems good. I think the nuking Roswell and guitar kicking in as you ride off on your stupid circle scooter thing is really funny, and I really appreciate it. But it's not
it's
compared to the rest.
It's like the topless scene. It's a great little moment, but it is not the top three. I also feel that way about Horton Boon. I think Horton Boon is a really neat character, and I think that the way they introduce him and his motley crew is pretty good, but I wish there was more of him and them in the game.
Yeah, they definitely leave you wanting more out of Horton specifically. But that said, the cutscene of you getting into a fucking political argument with him as fucking the rest of his posse is shooting people,
and you're just drinking this,
and you're just getting fucking wasted.
Also,
that's a great fucking moment.
Also, the clarinet. Well, so apparently there's different versions of the scene depending on which character you have. But if you have Fergus, he tells his the Nazis are coming and their sharpshooter lady is taking him down, and he tells their clarinet player to start playing.
Yeah,
and
I believe that happens in the Wyatt one too.
And then the political argument they're having is over which faction of the center and left was at fault for the Nazis coming to power.
Right.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's not bad.
It's a really good sequence.
I think that's one of my favorite sequences in the game. Honestly,
it's very strong.
It's amazing.
It's very.
I think
strong.
it's really carried by the character, and I feel like they don't do enough with him afterwards, which was a disappointment. I mean, I guess that's not a knock against this scene directly, but I feel like it kind of came and went, and I was more excited to just learn more about these people because I had seen such an awesome scene with them rather than the scene itself being super compelling.
To me, the three on here is Going Home Again and Confronting Your Father, The Death and Return of B.J. Blazkowicz, and The Hitler scene.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah,
I don't know, the courtroom sequence.
I just hate that combat. It's so pulled down.
I guess I played it on easy, so I didn't really
that
have
would've
that
been better.
issue. Yeah.
Everything minus the combat there is really good.
I just think it's so powerful to go into a scene that feels like any other video game scene before of of course I'm going to break out of this thing, and then to completely not. That was the turning point in the game for me, more so than the death and return of him, especially because you can see, not that it wasn't a huge moment, but you can see his the Nazi body without a head before you get it. So I feel like I sort of saw it coming.
Oh yeah,
yeah, you can.
It's in a tank, and then also, I mean, the cat with the head. You're like, okay, this is happening.
Was good. I missed the body.
Yeah, it's in there. So at first I was like, oh, they're gonna bring Caroline back, but I was like, no, they smashed her head. I don't know what's gonna happen here. And then it's like, oh, they cut his head off.
Yeah,
they're gonna bring him back.
To me, actually, I think more than any other part of that, I think the courtroom dream sequence and the death and return, those moments are inextricably linked into that sequence.
I mean, I think there is, isn't there a hard cut between meeting your mother and the execution scene?
Yeah, so you go back to the courtroom and they sentence you to death.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, the real courtroom.
Yeah.
Doesn't he realize he's dreaming when he's with his mother, and he's like, oh, this isn't real, is it?
Right. It's I mean, you as a player realize it too when you see his mother and you're like, oh, this was.
There's no way she's there, and also still the original age that she was when you left home.
Right.
Also, your father all but said that she has been murdered.
Yeah.
At that point.
I don't know. That courtroom sequence
it's good.
Was a turning point.
It is good, but that combat really holds it back.
Yeah, that's too bad. I don't know. I guess, I played on easy, so I didn't have that issue, but...
I think the death of Super Spesh is a really good scene. It's well written. That character in the limited moments that he has are very strong. But I don't think it's top three.
Yeah, I kind of agree with your top three: the going home, the Hitler scene, and the Death in Return.
Yep.
Like the Death in Return is so dumb.
It's spectacular.
It's like Ocean's 11 levels of fucking
For a
dumb.
game that goes dumb. And then the hijinks part of
that
she came up with the idea. I mean, really
at some point that was the moment where I realized this whole game actually is kind of an Ocean's 11 level of dumb.
Yeah, they have
this
the setup
ensemble
sequences.
cast
Yep.
of is just goofballs. Extremely,
And they're talking to your head in the jar, like, "Hey, which cool upgrade do you want?"
Yeah,
Right.
That to me was
like
the
super
thing that
fucking
sealed
Robocop
everything,
type shit.
Is picking one of 3 upgrades, and the upgrades are so ridiculous. It's like stretchy legs, tiny body.
And you're just his head looking back and forth. At it.
I definitely kept waiting for the catch, but no, you just have this awesome new body that works perfectly, and it's like, oh, just don't detach your head. Like that's it. Like it seemed like there was no downside, and he's super happy after.
Yeah, you want it to be.
feel great.
Awesome. I get a new body. I get to watch my children grow up. This is great. Everything's coming up, BJ.
Get to kill more Nazis.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so silly and dumb.
I mean, I really am. I'm actually advocating that we should tie the courtroom stuff into that because I think that whole sequence has to work together. I think it is the buildup of those moments together into that trial.
If you go
and
that far,
execution.
I think you have to get everything
Yeah,
from
because I
going
do feel
home.
like they are separate moments.
Yeah.
Like I had a separate reaction to both of those.
Yeah, me too.
All right.
Yeah, I think the execution sequence is its own thing.
Yeah.
I screamed. I fucking screamed when I saw what they were doing.
Yeah.
When I saw what they're doing when you're laying on the thing and they're acting like they're going to execute you, I was just thinking of all the possibilities. Like, okay, am I going to
Yeah,
bust out? Is this going to
totally.
be another
How's he gonna
courtroom
get out?
thing? And then
Yeah.
I grab their gun and stab
Yeah.
that guy. And then the thing comes down, and it was the moment where you just see the head with the blood dripping out the bottom.
Yeah.
It's like, is this going to be am I playing as a different character?
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a bit there where you're like, oh, is this going to flash forward and I'm going to be playing as the twins?
Yeah,
Or,
yeah.
where does this go? Yeah.
I didn't think for a second, I know they had clues and stuff ahead of time, but I didn't really
Yeah.
pick up on them. Yeah, because it's like, well, he's super dead. His head is off.
Yeah, totally. I had missed that body, so I didn't see it coming when they beheaded him.
And then once they cut to the rewinding and everything, it's like, wait, what are they doing here? And then I started thinking about the cat, and it's like, oh, fuck.
That's how it could have happened. Yeah, it was really
What a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the 3 you suggested.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
I think the courtroom scene is great, but I appreciate that the combat maybe brings it down.
It's it's a really cool idea that I wish they'd executed
Sure.
better, I guess.
especially for a fantasy of you just taking everybody out. That was probably one of
on
the
easy, I had that, so
oh man,
Even
That,
on easy, I found that sequence
Yeah.
weirdly
No, I had
difficult
no
for what it
issues
was.
with
Yeah.
it. I don't know.
I really like grabbing a minigun and just shooting the heads off of Hitler statues just down that whole hallway.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
some pretty fun power fantasy stuff there.
And with a few tweaks, it would have been perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
A dual minigun.
So is the Death in Return number 1?
I kind of like.
I think
it's
the Hitler scene.
I think it's
Yeah,
also
I
the
think it's the Hitler scene.
I actually think it's the
No.
Death in
I
Return.
think it's the Death in Return. That's the biggest moment in the game.
By
The
far.
Hitler scene
I
is
don't
like
know.
I don't know. I don't want to
stick
say
the
it's a
Hit-
novelty, but
the
it's
Hit- no way.
it's not. It's important to the
I
story,
think
but
it functions
not in
on
the same
so
way
many
that
levels.
Death in Return is.
Like the Death in Return is the complete tonal shift of that
Right.
game. It is everything that they have been building up to, and then they make that turn, and it's insane and amazing. And then, after that, yes, there's some the Hitler scene is a fascinating and funny moment, but I don't think it compares necessarily.
So many
this
layers
isn't
to it.
most important Wolfenstein moment
Yeah.
sequence, though. This is
just best.
If you were to tell people about the best part of the game,
That's the part I
think,
tell them about
yes,
is the death.
I would
agree,
tell them about
yeah.
the part where you can kick Hitler to death after he shot somebody for reading a line
Ronald Reagan.
wrong
On Venus.
In his
On Venus.
where Hitler murdered Ronald Reagan for calling him Mr. Hitler
In a movie audition
Venus.
on a Venus.
Okay, I guess for me, the Ronald Reagan thing, yes, big, but I feel like that scene didn't surprise me in the same way that the Death in Return surprised me.
I don't know. I was super excited about that scene from the moment I realized what they were doing when they said, "Oh, this actor's auditioning for this thing," and then you can see the gears turning. Oh, I got an idea.
I mean,
I was
yeah.
already excited about the going undercover as an actor playing myself thing.
Yeah.
And then it's oh, I'm going to Venus. Okay, that's weird and cool. And then it's oh, there's Hitler. Okay, and then it's just weirder from
Well, it's
there.
you realize okay, in the mission before that or whatever, all the senior leadership evacuates to Venus. You do when you get that script, it says by AH, and you're like, oh, all right, okay, all right.
And he really is just Howard Hughes in that scene. He's making movies and losing his mind.
Yeah.
I love that the functional Nazi leadership at that point has relegated him to some bullshit vanity project because he's too fucking far gone and idiotic to actually run the empire anymore.
And I like those line reads. I also like when the guy is the actor who doesn't get it goes in there and gets bopped in the face, and it's like, ow,
Yeah.
oh, hey, my nose, you broke my nose.
And then he just like so casually shoots that guy.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Like I said, it's like very darkly comic.
Yeah.
Like there's a like a fucking real menace to that whole thing.
Yeah. Like I was not like happy with myself for laughing at it on some level. It felt bad.
I guess maybe I just didn't have quite that same feeling with it, where it's like I think the comedy is so over the top that I never got that real sense of menace. Like even when he was shooting those dudes, I was like, well, of course he is. Like it's fucking it's cartoon Hitler. Of course he's just going to murder people with reckless abandon.
Yeah, I was not surprised by it, I guess is my main thing. And like I know other people found it a lot funnier. I guess I didn't do the funny line read, so I like missed that whole thing. I don't know. I think it's so impactful that like your main character dies and then doesn't die. They solve the issue that the first half of the game was having with like the low health. Like,
and you can like
that seems like such a big moment.
And you can tease back to the ways in which they sort of foreshadowed what they were going to do there, and the realization of that I think also is a big part of it. And I don't know, like. I can't think of a game that made me just or a part in any game this year that made my just fucking jaw drop open the way that moment did, the death and return part.
And it's not like he dies and comes back in a way where it's like, oh, I got shot and like it flatlined, but then, oh, wait, he's coming back to life. It's like they chop your fucking head off on the Washington Mall and hold it up and drop it into an incinerator.
Fire.
Yeah, like honestly, either of those, I kind of put those on the equal plane. I love both of those.
Yeah, they're...
If the death and return bit doesn't work, that whole game doesn't work. Like that is the turn they are making. That is the thing they are building toward for half of that thing. Like that is the theme they're running with the the sort of like obsession with like BJ's body and the ways it's breaking down and all that kind of shit. Stuff that's even like kind of alluded to in the first game. Like Heather Alexandra wrote a really great piece about that on Kotaku. Like that moment like feeds into so much of what they're doing in that series, not just that game.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It definitely does. It's hugely pivotal, and yeah, there's something almost gleeful about like coming out the other end of that with like it, and he has this completely different attitude.
Yeah, I mean, it is a singular piece of symbolism in that like he and the revolutionary effort are both born anew and ready to start go. They're ready to go. Like it's all right. We are.
Getting like health upgrades and robot legs. It's like, whoa, okay, cool.
It does only kind of serve that one purpose though.
I mean, I think that one purpose is like hugely important to what that game is doing.
And I think it's a bigger purpose than the Hitler scene.
After like the first game with Jimi Hendrix showing up, I was just like, okay, who's going to be like the guy from historical context that they have in this game? Who's going to be like oh, look, this guy's in it. And that I'm like halfway through the game, nobody 3/4 of the way through, you finally like out of nowhere it hits you like a dump truck. Like I don't know. I was just like,
I fully agree with what Jeff said that like that scene is the reason this category exists. Like it is maybe the most stunned I have ever been after a scene in a video game. Like, I almost wanted to turn it.
Scene?
I almost wanted to turn it off. I felt so weird.
I like after that I had to stop. And think about it for a while.
I totally put the controller down after that scene was over because I was so uncomfortable.
Like I paused it like multiple times along the way, going like, I can't fucking believe this.
Like they had Hitler. I don't understand.
Well, like what happened? The context of that scene, like because of course they have Hitler, and like you know that trilogy ends with robot Hitler getting gunned down. They told us as much as E3. But the way they introduce him and use him, and like I said, it is not the comedy of it. Like it is the comedy cut with the fucking insidious menace of like
and how
that
true
character.
To his nature they are with like what Brad was saying. Like you compare his grandiose ideas and like it's just like. Yes,
it's this weird thing where you look at it and go like, it actually probably kind of could go down, could have gone down like
that's
this.
What it is for me is that it's like it is the. I don't know how do you put it like this: the danger of endowing one person with that kind of power taken to its logical extreme,
and then it becomes him pissing in a bucket in front of you because he doesn't give a shit.
Right,
that's not comedy. That's like,
and he's 80.
It's
right.
Like it's like sad and terrifying.
Yeah,
that this person is has been allowed to get away with this for this long.
Yeah, so that's what I mean by the menace of it. Is it's like
totally
is it that character like he's gone to such an extreme with those views.
And people still
are still
like the entire world has been taken over by this just fucking this leaky piece of shit.
Yes.
Right, and
100%.
I think that sets up like what you're fighting for.
Yeah.
Like this is why you have to go and end this. And like I think the menace part is what made those line reads so funny, which is like you just watched everybody get shot here. You know this guy's unhinged, and then you force your poor main character to say, "I will cake and batter you." Instead of the right line, knowing that he's gonna die, and like BJ knows you're giving him the wrong line, and like that to me was for some reason hilarious.
It's not for some reason. Like the comedy of that scene is like when you do that stuff is totally on point. Like that actor, like the way he almost sort of looks at the camera when you do it, like is
good.
You could tell he's having a lot of fun with that bit.
It's like so hesitant.
And I feel like the cliche for having Hitler in a video game isn't this. It's like making him a big, terrible, bad guy with like. I mean, it's like Mecha Hitler, right? It's like I've never seen Hitler in. I've barely seen Hitler in video games, but I've rarely seen him in media where the Nazis are a powerful force as Hitler being depicted like this.
Right, like I feel like they defy the cliche, they deconstruct the myth, like they do everything they need to do with the scene. There's a bit in defiance of what everything you would expect about it.
There's a bit of like Joker-esque, like just like completely unpredictable, and that's like I always thought the Joker was kind of like, why is he such a villain? And then there was something, I forget what I watched, but there was something where it was like, oh, because he just kills anybody, right? It's like indiscriminate. And like there was a bit of like, why is this person a threat? And then I think this scene kind of like shapes sort of like, this powerful guy who nobody will stand up to that is just indiscriminately killing everyone.
Sure, yeah.
That is interesting to see play out. I did think they went like a little too far trying to like show him as a frail old man and like this thing that is.
I think that's crucial though, because like ultimately what it's saying is like this guy is only so dangerous because everyone around him allows him to be.
Yeah, definitely. But like, you know, in also like the poop and fart joke way of like, okay, I get it. Like he should have just had bad gas too, you know?
Like I think that's the thing that actually maybe undercuts it a little bit for me is that I have seen versions of this Hitler in other stuff before. You know, like I've seen Inglourious Bastards, which admittedly he's a minor character in that, and they don't like linger on him for too long, but they definitely make him out to be more of just like a rambling idiot than anything. But even if you've seen like Downfall, which is a very, close portrait of what he was like at the end of the war, like they don't play that movie for laughs, obviously, but like they show what like kind of like a frail, paranoid idiot he is through a lot of that, and how his decision making is essentially unmaking his own war machine. And like this to me felt like the fucking Zucker brothers version of that, where like they just turned it into complete slapstick. And I understand why they went with that, and I do think that some of that stuff works, but I don't think it completely played for me because I feel like this is not necessarily a novel portrayal of Hitler. It's just the most over-the-top version that I've seen in recent memory.
I think that is crucial in a context where the Nazis have taken over the entire world with magical technology. Like, that is the logical extreme of all this. When he has unchecked power and nothing ever stops him, it's going to become insane.
I mean, and like couple that with like the part where like BJ is auditioning for himself in a movie about himself in the downfall.
And how they write him as just this baby murdering, like, like the content of that script that he wrote is fucking insane.
Yeah, I guess I'm not saying it's like a bad scene.
No, it's not at all.
It didn't personally surprise me, and I just think that the death and return of him is so pivotal to the entire game. I think is my draw for it.
Like when I said that Wolfenstein 2 crashed into the best moment category in a spectacular way, like I was talking about the death and return scene. Like the Hitler scene was a thing that I knew we were going to be talking about, but I really didn't think like it had that much impact comparatively.
I also don't think they're like poop and pee stuff. I don't think it's just this like South Park, let's dunk on Hitler and make him like super feeble. Like that, it's played for laughs, but also if it is going to be Mecha Hitler, which it will, I mean, we've already seen his body is breaking down and stuff, and of course he would take his head off, and now he's got this super robot body.
And especially with this whole game being about, sort of like the transference of bodies and sort of, the notion of immortality that they are trying to impart through the fucking Aryan fucking, project here. I don't know. Like, I just feel like, I don't know. I think that scene is so amazing. And it was so surprising to me in the moment.
I agreed, and then I saw the Hitler scene, and I was like, "Wow, they topped even that."
I really liked that scene. I just felt like it went on a touch too long because you watch the Death and Return.
Okay,
because you watch the thing twice because you watch your head fall and die, and then you watch what really happened. And like, I understand why they had to do it that way because of how they set it up, but it's I was waiting kind of for the next part where I could start playing again.
I don't know, man. Like I feel like they do that, but I think it's actually done in a pretty concise way. Like, you know, they do a little bit of the Ocean's 11, like, well, here's how we really pulled it off. But it's like, I don't know, it's like maybe a minute total of that. And like that to me was like not really the central component of any of that. It was more just the sheer surprise of sitting there waiting for the rescue that you think is going to come because it's a video game. Of fucking course your friends are going to come crashing in and save you. And then it's just chunk.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I agree that this is like, even in comparison to everything in our next category, it's one of the best moments of the year.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know, if I had to pick out one criticism of the scene, it'd be that for me. And then I literally can't think of something I wasn't enjoying during the Hitler scene.
Like I have problems with both of them in like very minor ways, but they're both very good. Yeah. Like I think the death scene, the actual head scene, is a little Deus Ex Machina of like, oh, okay, you wrote in the return of your hero in this super sci-fi way, which is like maybe justified by some of the technology and story, but also like you have your hero. And then like the Hitler scene, I thought the like poopy Hitler was like like maybe a little too much like puking and gross and just like, all right, I get it. All right, he's bad. I mean, also you have some agency in the Hitler scene, which I think is interesting just in terms of like the interactivity. And the death and return, most of the death stuff. I don't even remember where we're starting. Where are we? Is that post?
I think we start with him waking up from the dream, like when he's like strapped to the thing.
It's mostly watching it, which isn't a bad thing. Like I still think it all works. Again, like I think these are both good. I think the audition scene is, to me, just a little more interesting in terms of flavor and what it does for the universe versus the sci-fi-ness of the return scene, which is, you know, it's a big story beat. It's a big pivotal story beat, which is also very good and very shocking. But I think I like the less shocking nature of the audition scene. And again, personally, this is my thing. I thought those line reads were really funny.
Yeah. Nobody is discounting the line reads, Vinny. The line reads are very good.
Yeah, the head in the jar is funny. It's very stupid. Jason?
Death in Return.
You're Death in Return?
I think I'm a Death in Return.
Your head in the jar?
Yeah, I think so. I thought Hitler was great. That's a weird thing to say, right?
Yeah.
just edit that out?
Yeah. Just did the soundbite. Ultimately, it really came off as not necessarily comic relief, but a weird bit of levity.
It is a very weird bit of levity. That is true.
Yeah, like I said, I think walking that line between the grotesque and the hilarious is one of the things that thing does well.
They tread it well. I like it an awful lot. But yeah, I think the head in the jar sequence, how they, Ocean 11, this damn head with a drone, and that was
it goes from Ocean's 11 to Robocop over the course of like 5 minutes.
And you mentioned the part where like, you know, you thought your friends were going to be like trying to resuscitate you at the end. They are, but they're just trying to resuscitate your head. They're like electroshocking your head, trying to make your head go again.
It's a very weird scene.
It is. Well, where are we at then?
Head in jar.
Head in jar.
Head in jar.
I cannot agree.
I think I'd lean towards Hitler. It's close, but I'd lean towards Hitler.
Yeah. It seems like that whole end of the table is more
like I said,
in favor of Hitler.
The execution, like the execution.
I'm going to call it the audition scene.
Yeah, let's maybe stop saying Hitler so much.
It's a game where Hitler is prominently featured. We have to.
I know. The execution thing does one thing. The Hitler scene serves like 5 different purposes to me. Like it is functioning on so many different levels.
It's what I needed more out of that game in the current political climate.
I don't know. I needed to know my head would be saved in a jar.
When the revolution comes,
can wait this thing out.
Okay?
I needed to know I could add some stilts to my legs and let me get through some parts of the game.
Body constrictor.
You really don't want that, Alex. It's a curse.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the one upgrade I never actually got.
That was the one I chose.
The stilts?
Yeah.
The walking
that was the first
one I picked.
I got the
I picked the stilts.
I picked
the shoulder.
You just run through everybody.
Yeah.
That does seem good.
And then I found the compression.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I found the constrictor too.
Oh.
I didn't find the stilts.
I very quickly went and looked up how to get the other two because I wanted all those abilities.
I just happened to find
knew.
them.
Because all those abilities together doesn't fix the gameplay problems with that game, but it sure makes them go down easier.
Yeah.
I just did not like the sound the constrictor made when he used it.
It's gross.
Oh yeah, it's like the sucking sound.
Yeah.
Also, the little side missions you do on the U-boat to upgrade all the contraptions are fucking weird. I don't know if you guys did.
I
those.
did the stilt one.
I can't remember which. Oh, you have to jump. You have to vault over all those electrical things.
Right.
The
Yes.
poison gas one.
Yeah,
is
you
that
have to
one
turn
of
off the gas valve with the
rats or whatever in
Yeah,
there? That
like,
was
it's
weird.
Weird stuff.
There's a lot of weird stuff in that game.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I don't know. It kind of feels like we're like 3 to 5 audition scene versus Death and Return.
Yeah.
Which I will just say my last piece. I think it is completely bonkers to not do the Death and Return scene, but I will understand if I'm outvoted.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think the Death and Return scene is so pivotal. I personally wasn't surprised by the Hitler scene. I see the points you guys are making, but
it's the moment I thought was going to win Moment of the Year before we broke this out into a different category.
That is exactly how I felt about the audition
Yeah,
stuff.
totally.
Okay.
Totally.
Yeah.
Like, I remember coming into the office the day after you had finished that game, and you were just, like, fucking aghast at what had happened, and I was like, fucking, what is he talking about? Like, he doesn't usually get like this about games. What is going on?
It was just like, there were multiple things along the way, obviously, but
Yeah,
like
sure.
that was the thing very much that I was like, fucking holy shit.
Yeah, there's something about the Death and Return scene that makes it pivotal to the game that it has to be in there to solve a problem, and the audition scene doesn't. And like that makes me kind of like the audition scene a little more of like, here's this like constructed narrative in here that doesn't necessarily, you could have not had that, but it adds so much to the game where they had to solve a problem with the capture in the head, and they wrote themselves out of it in the most bombastic, silly way.
And to extend what you're saying, there are so many ways you can take Hitler and just sort of like coast on the fact that it's Hitler.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, all right, here is the icon of ultimate evil. Like, everybody knows Hitler sucks.
Yeah.
Next scene, like, you know, they didn't have to do anything with it. It could have been super perfunctory.
Also,
but they like blew it out of the water.
Also, the head in a jar is literally the inverse of what they do at the beginning of that game, which is like, oh, instead of getting a new body, it's the same exact thing. You keep your head and you have the robot body that keeps you alive because your body's broken, and they just get a new body, a better body. So it's like they've already done the sci-fi insanity with the like robot suit.
It's not the body necessarily as much as you think your main character, the person you're playing as, is
For sure.
you died.
Yeah.
Like you think, oh, I'm gonna have to play somebody else or whatever. I don't know. Like I think we're going for the Hitler scene. That's fine. But that's more my argument was like, you think they're gonna die. You think you're
the misdirection.
done with this. Yeah.
And it's part of why I kind of wanted to tease tie the dream stuff into it, because I do think that dream sequence and the build up around it and that sort of initial feeling of like, oh yeah, I'm breaking out of here, I'm doing that shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Is absolutely integral to that next scene landing with the impact that it does.
So I think that for me, the dream sequence was, I actually like the idea of a dream sequence, but the actual content of that thing, like even removed from the gameplay, I thought was like pretty bad. Like when you open the door, the mother's there and stuff like that. I was like, oh, this is just corny. I like that stuff really. I like how they get from point A, or I like that they got from point A to point B, but the way they get there through that dream sequence, I actually thought the whole content of that thing was pretty rotten.
I think the part with the mom could have been super corny. I think the dialogue they wrote for it like gets them out of that corner and makes it more interesting.
I thought it was done really well.
Yeah, but I agree with you that the actual combat around that is not good, and that the way they tuned it was not right for what they were trying to portray there.
Yeah, I kind of wish they just like let you not be invincible, but like somehow tweak behind the scenes like your health, so it felt like unreal a little bit more. That you were like just mowing your way
on some
out
level.
of that
Like, what does that say about BJ that even his dream sequences are fucked or dark? Like,
yeah,
you know, there's merit to that.
I think what it says is that they got a little too up their own ass with their difficulty settings in general.
Yeah,
or like that combat arena. I had to save scum my way through that. It was very hard.
Yeah, it's not
I
fun.
had trouble.
All right. Well, if the decision, if it feels like we're leaning on the Hitler scene, like I can definitely live with that.
Yeah. Same.
Okay.
All right. It is decreed. The Hitler scene is the best Wolfenstein 2 moment or sequence.
Can I just get one more fist bump from my fellow head in the jar posse? All right.
I put the death and return of BJ Blazkowicz second on the list, even though this is not an ordered list.
That's fair.
I just made sure to put it there.
So you'll know.
Going home again and confronting your father is also pretty crazy.
Man,
sure is.
You murder your father, and that's the well, obviously that's the second runner-up. Like,
man, what a
that's a huge scene.
What an insane game.
Really is.
Holy crap!
Like
they went for it.
It took me a while to realize that wasn't also a dream. Of like, is your dad just really sitting in a corner?
I hallucinating?
Oh, yeah, in this like dark room.
Yeah. You would. I would have thought that maybe he just would have been dead by then or something. So you're not really clear on if there's going to be an actual confrontation or not.
BJ doesn't seem that shocked. Dad. Yeah, it's weird.
All right. That's the best Wolfenstein 2 moment or sequence. Let's take 5 before we come back with the last momentous category of the day.